Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to the Upset Podcast. We're looking forward to another great program tonight. Of course, it won't be great without this crew, so let's bring them on at this time. What's up, everybody?
Hey,
Hello.
family.
Howdy.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Hey. Hello to our listening and viewing audience. We are happy to be back with you. We are not live, so don't think we're ignoring you in the chat, but we will be reading the chat. So we look forward to your commentary as always. So, guys, what's been flowing through your timeline, through your mind? From what's on your mind today?
I can start. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill. No, go.
No, I mean, I'll be quick, Nick. And that is Bill, Nick, whatever agency of the law might be looking for me.
Yeah,
but
Steve, go ahead, Steve.
But I am curious about the NFL. I was watching an NBA basketball game yesterday, and both coaches were black. I mean, you can't swing a dead cat in the NBA and not hit a black coach. In the NFL, with 70% of the players being black, they are discovering now that there seems to be a de facto lockout of black coaches. I'm kind of wondering what makes the difference. It's an interesting development, and we're following it up.
And that are more talented than the people they're actually hiring. I thought that was very important.
And this is all coming out for Black History Month. We can't forget.
It's so interesting that Black History Month began with a series of a dozen bomb threats on HBCU campuses.
Yes.
So the fear tactics are real. And we saw this a few weeks ago, and now they're back at it again. And so these are the times we're living in, y'all. 2022. What you gonna do?
And if I might add to that, the taking of the books off the shelf, that in the libraries. And I mean, some states are trying to actually make it a crime, like a real criminal crime for people to go to jail if the teachers would teach, about racism, if it makes people feel uncomfortable. I mean, your Confederate flags have made us uncomfortable for years. But you haven't tried to take those off, Go
ahead, H-Rap Marlena.
But also, a friend of mine said this was so interesting. The states want to, when it comes to elections and things like that, they take away your water, take away your food, but you can bring guns. You can bring guns to elections. You can take off our books off the shelf and erase our history, which is totally irrelevant. And this is Black History Month, so I just wanted to share that.
No shame in their game.
We are irrelevant to the peoples.
That's true. Well, on a positive note, I don't know if you guys have heard about. Well, Target has a line of Black History Month shirts. And what's unique about that is it's featuring cotton. I mean, the shirts are made from cotton from a farm, the Bridgeford Farm in Alabama, which happens to be one of my friends, one of my college friends. Her family owns this farm. They provided all of the cotton, well, not all for all the shirts, but for a large majority of the shirts. So when you purchase a shirt from Target, it has a little history of their farm. So it was like kind of cool. I was like, oh my goodness, I know them. Like I had no idea that she came from, her name is Lorian. It was Lorian Bridgeford. Now it's Lorian Charles. So it's kind of cool to kind of see how your colleagues are part of, Black
well, let's hope that there aren't folk out there picking that cotton and they got combines.
So your friend is literally from High Cotton.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And the shirts are kind of cool. So check them out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, to check that out. That'd be nice.
Well, my little thing on, well, there's several stories that kind of had me clicking all week. But the one that stood out for me was Joe Rogan's controversy with Spotify and Neil Young saying, take my music. It's either me or Joe Rogan.
Joni Mitchell.
And Joni Mitchell as well. And you know what? I'm sure the bean counters didn't think real long on that. Joe Rogan has got millions of listeners. It's big for Spotify, and it went down. But I think the core of the story for me is this tag misinformation.
Yeah.
Misinformation is relative. And the other part of the story is that Joe Rogan admitted, he says, I got to do better. He apologized. which is something that some of the mainstream media won't do. When they put out misinformation, you don't see them coming back and retracting. So my point in mentioning this is that, I'm not pro or against Joe Rogan. I think we should look at what it means to, in terms of this country, freedom of speech, and how we define that and how we control it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have one last thing before we dive into our discussion. This beautiful young lady who committed suicide.
Oh, yeah.
People are saying, how could she be so suicidal? She was so pretty. She was so successful. But people forget the fact that, it could be you. It could be someone who's battling that battle. And so,
that was
it's not just people who are poor or people who are
Right.
struggling in life. People who are doing well in life also have these issues as well. So it's important for us to keep talking about the conversation.
Yeah. Well, it's really sad, but I will correct you on one thing, that GP, that would not be me. Nobody would say he was so pretty, he was so good looking. But
you also wouldn't fall out of a window.
So. No. Let me tell you though, despair is real.
Yeah,
it is.
And I get it. And when people act, and the therapists no longer say commit suicide. It sounds someone who's experienced it, but I mean, people who take their own lives are trying in a desperate way to rescue themselves, and they're not trying to kill themselves. They're trying to end pain and find relief that nobody else gives to them. And folks don't get that. They figure, why would she hate herself so much? It's not that she hated herself so much. It was that she was trying to find a relief that she could not find.
Right. And she even posted, on Instagram prior to that, may you find peace or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So she kind of, and the thing I was seeing about different people is that she was always so chipper, and they had no indication that they should even check in, the expression check on your strong friends, because sometimes you can't always tell, they may not ever be down in your presence, but it's still good to stay connected.
One of the shortest trips between elation, the trip between elation and despair is one of the shortest trips you can take. You can be way up one moment, and then you're dancing before the crowd and everybody's calling your name, and you got the Ark of the Covenant right behind you, and you walk in the door and your wife says the wrong thing, and bam, there you are. And so
right. And I think great entertainers like Michael Jackson, is considered the greatest entertainer to ever hit the stage. I watched a couple of documentaries. He was constant motion. He had to work. He had to keep going.
Yeah, it was like a shark.
And I kind of felt like there was something psychotic going on there. I'm imagining this guy at home relaxing.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way for Robin Williams. I always follow.
Oh yeah.
Always funny, always, the
very witty
star of the show. That hurt. So when I think it was after our last show, we put out that this had happened to this lady, you kind of say to yourself, wow, what's.
Yeah, and then Regina King's son too. I mean, it's like you're just
right.
Yeah. Did he commit suicide though?
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I just saw it bad.
That's awful. Not to to take it back up a little bit. Washington Redskins. I know we change your name.
The new mascot.
Who are the Washington Redskins?
I mean, Washington Redskins. Then they moved from Washington to Washington.
Commanders now.
Right. But they're announcing their new name though, aren't they?
Yeah,
or have
Commanders.
They named it.
They named the Commanders.
Yeah. Washington Commanders.
The Commanders overtook the Indians.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
that
will allow them to command the last place next year.
Well, I just want to say real quick, because I kind of just responded to you guys. I just want to say that we now live in a world that is so unforgiving. If you do say something incorrect or you apologize, I mean, there's so much hype and this council culture or council culture, some are saying you should have. I think education is very important, but there should be some mercy You know, it just makes me
That's
think
true.
about us. You know, we
Mhm.
say stuff, you know, that we believe, and then, you know, we have to be enlightened later. And so I just
Right.
think in the world we should have
I
mercy
agree.
towards people.
I agree.
I
I
agree.
agree. You know, I
Totally
saw an
agree.
interview of a Jewish author and artist. He was asked the question about Whoopi Goldberg's statements.
Hmm.
And for him, he said, really? The woman apologized. And she said she misspoke. I mean, to take her off, suspend her for
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And this guy is Jewish. He said, really? That wasn't necessary.
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, that we're walking our way right into our topic
Yeah,
here.
yeah, I was gonna
There
say
you go.
we're gonna get into that. But as you know, this is Black History Month, and so the Upset Podcast is dedicating our themes for this year, for this month, whole month, on issues that affect the Black community. And so, Tally, share with us what's our first topic as we jump off into Black
Well,
history.
I've composed just a few random thoughts on the issue that I would share with you, and you know, in order to really get started in this topic, we've already broached it by mentioning the name of a very, very famous person. Tasha, let's go to the screen and see if we can enlarge upon this discussion. We already started talking about this, and you know, it comes about because of something that a sister said, whom we all know, and
Who
that
that?
is star of stage, screen, and television Whoopi Goldberg on her nationally televised show, The View, on this past Monday had this to say about the Holocaust. She said that the Holocaust wasn't about race. Now, the moment in America and really around the world, when you mention the word race, ladies and gentlemen, people become almost apoplectic because race is just a word that ignites a firestorm of opinion, feelings, recriminations, and fears. And one of the real problems about discussing race is that most people don't know what definition they are using. We turn to our friends in Britannica Online, and they give us the notion that race is the idea that the human species is divided into distinct groups on the basis of inherited physical and behavioral differences, which is what Whoopi Goldberg was getting into. She thought race was something that you could readily observe and see. But I want you to note that the first part of the definition is that it is an idea. We have come to understand, and I was speaking to a biological anthropologist the other day, and what he told me is that race is actually non existent. It's not real. It is a social psychological construct. It's things that we pull together to decide who to accept and receive and reject and disenfranchise.
Mm.
Wow.
So we recognize that even though it is not real, it's a social construct. The way we treat people based upon that social construct, that psychological perspective, can be very real, which brings us to a topic that we have often discussed in our churches. What about this thing about race in the Bible? Is there something to be said about the Bible and race as we begin Black History Month? Because those of you who are old enough to remember will remember every church had a stained glass window, and in that stained glass window, they had pictures of people from the Bible. And if you had a really good Bible, the kind that sat on your coffee table and helped the coffee table defy gravity, you would have those pictures in that Bible. And there was something about those pictures that was always a bit unsettling to me.
Mhm.
When I looked at Moses in the Bible, I would see that Moses looked like Charlton Heston and David looked like somebody else. And Abraham was someone, and even Pharaoh didn't look like me. And last but not least, Mary, the mother of Jesus. They all seem to have something in common that I did not have in common. And if Mary, the mother of Jesus, did not look like me, then you had to know that there was going to be another personality coming along who would not look like me at all. But based on racial definitions, ethnic definitions, when you look at the picture of this person, and many people, without saying a word, everybody thinks they know who I'm talking about. But as they say on the street, when you see a phone number on your cell phone and you're not aware of what that number is, I look at that picture and I say, who this? Now, the question of race in the Bible is big. When you think about the fact that people, when they pray, will think of that picture. And therefore, when they look at somebody who does not look at that picture, they may diminish them. Race is very important. And so you have to ask yourself some questions about race and the Bible. Is race an issue in the Bible? You also have to wonder, if it is an issue, what does the Bible have to say about race? And then last but not least, are there people in the Bible who look like me? Because that becomes important to ask that question. We're going to turn this back over now to the brightest minds and the quickest wits and the sharpest tongues anywhere to be found, our fellow upsetters, as we talk about race in the Bible. Is it important? What does it have to say? Are there people in the Bible who look like us? And then we'll go through some personalities, and we'll see whether or not we can suss out some truth and some veracity when it comes to race in the Bible. Ladies and gentlemen, therein endeth the lesson. And I now return
Nick,
you to
I
your
got to say
regularly scheduled.
that was so good. That was so
right?
good.
Thank you, mademoiselle. I
had on my
appreciate that.
college sweatshirt too. I thought I was transformed into,
Just take the hour. Just take the hour to teach. That was really good.
Well, I mean, the question now becomes, I mean, there are a lot of the Bible. Let me ask the first question. Does the Bible have anything to say about race?
I don't believe that, and I was looking this up, just thinking about Bible and race. And is this something that we're putting into the Bible? Because when the Bible was written, were they even thinking about race? And when you look at the Bible, they really don't reference race. You hear about who the lineage, and you hear about where they were, but they were never, intentional about saying, their nationality or their race. That was never something that the Bible really focused its attention on.
There was a scientific review years ago that showed that all around the world, the first identifying factor that people have is it male or is it female? In America, is it black or is it white? Because race is so definitive.
Right.
And so if race is not definitive in the Bible, what did they use to define people and to categorize people and to determine who was in and who was out?
Well, the Bible is a multicultural book.
Okay.
We added the race part to it, but it was a multicultural book, and it doesn't mean that there wasn't discrimination, but it wasn't so much a matter of black and white, because there's still a lot of discrimination going on now, even in Africa. You got Israel and Palestinians and what have you. So, and some people think, oh, that's all about race and color. Not so much. If you look at biblical history, and even from an archaeological framework, there was never really, as Latasha said, there was never really any statement of race. It was, various cultures, various tribes, various people. I think for profit and for control, folk with colonizer minds started adding the crayons to the.
Oh, he didn't go there. Did he go to the colonizer?
Yeah.
The man go. Did he do a
I'll leave it there.
on us? Okay.
I'll leave it there.
Okay.
No, but you know what? You notice that in every, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. So you driving down East New York, you'll see the quote unquote Hispanic Jesus. I don't. If you see it, you'll know that it's a Hispanic Jesus. They have the Oriental Jesus. They have the Mongolian Jesus. They have all types of Jesus that you can get and stick on the back of your car or whatever. But it's funny, every time we see the African Jesus with the curly hair, and because that's what ours look like, the curly hair, the one on the new Steps to Christ. We would or you have to order it that way.
Yeah.
Then
Are you serious? You have to order that way?
The variations. Yeah.
Wait a minute. There's an Afro Sheen Jesus.
Yeah. But I don't know about the sheen, but there's an Afro.
Right.
There's an Afro Jesus.
So you order the Soul Train edition of this book.
There you go.
So you get the vanilla milkshake and you add cocoa.
Come on, didn't you remember growing up when we had the Steps of Christ? It was the Jesus.
Yeah.
He was knocking on the United Nations
Right.
door.
Right.
Window,
With blonde hair and blue eyes. Yeah.
We're blonde hair. That's why I said, Nick, the picture that you put up earlier is not Jesus, because he didn't have
the blonde
hair and blue eyes. So it's not the one.
It was stated that Ellen White said that picture of Jesus was the one who looked most
closest.
like him. Yeah. To what she
Which
had
one?
seen.
The blonde hair and blue eyes?
Which picture?
There's a picture
Really?
that was the classic picture of Jesus with the high forehead and the cleft beard, and
Yeah.
she said that looked most like him, and I thought, well, maybe she was seeing the wrong passport when she envisioned him.
Well, well, here's
I never heard that.
here's yeah, I've heard of it. See, when she came out of vision.
Came out of vision.
She saw it and said,
She said, "I seen him."
Yeah. But here's the thing. I also look in the book of Revelation that discusses his skin color, bronze, and his hair like wool.
In locks.
Yeah. And just wait.
Right.
Let me,
You're running into the trap.
Yeah, walking right into it. But let me say one more thing, and I'll let Nick go with this. It's hard for me. To grow up. My parents didn't teach me, and neither did my church, being a Caribbean church, did not teach me anything about color either way through. Because when I was coming up, we had the felts, Chuck. Y'all don't know about felts.
Yeah, the fuzzy felts.
Fuzzy felts. And everything they put up on the felt was something that came from the something that he ordered, and you put it up against the wall, or against the felt. So we actually grew up, and I know that when I think about Jesus growing up, I picture a white man,
a white guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Most people, even nowadays, still do. The question becomes, is it important? Because I know a lot of white people say it doesn't matter what color he is, and they say
as long
that
as he's white.
Yeah,
It's like it matters to them.
Why is it important then that we establish that there were people of color in the Bible, and that we are accurate in our portrayal of who these people are?
I think it's important because a lot of times people were using scripture, whether it's the colonizer, they were using scripture as justification for how they treated blacks, saying that we were cursed based on things they're reading the Bible about, saying we were cursed, and therefore saying, yeah, you're in the Bible, but we're told to stay away from you. You were the people God warned people to stay. So it's important for us to give a holistic approach to this. There were kings. They were to give people value, to let people who look like us know that you weren't just the discarded people. You were you had great power. You don't listen to what has been we've been taught for so long in terms of who we are and what we bring, our contribution to this world.
Well, I'm sorry, Charles. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, archaeologists have found in the Roman catacombs that the 1st and 2nd century persecuted Christians depicted. You'll find images that were clearly people of color. And these are in the catacombs, Roman catacombs. Archaeologists have found this, and so when you look at it from a archaeological and historical point of view, not necessarily from a spiritual or biblical point of view, archaeologists have been unearthing people of color. The engravings clearly show they are of African descent, and that's not something somebody can make up. But again, that was the intent of colonizers and others who want to use race to divide people, and that's how they used it. I mean, it wasn't until recently that I learned that there were female pharaohs. I was like, what? I was never taught that in school.
Yeah. I mean, even you can go over to Deir el-Bahari right now and see the funeral monument of Queen Hatshepsut, who was such a massive power that they actually dressed her as a man because they just couldn't accept it. But I'm sorry, GP.
Yeah, I was going to ask, geographically speaking, where was the Garden of Eden?
Wow.
We're going to talk about roots.
That's right.
The beginnings.
Right.
That's right.
Between the Tigris and the Euphrates.
I
always learn that. Is that true, Nick? I mean,
there's some
really
really
Africa.
Yeah, but I mean that's Africa.
Yeah, I've heard.
No, the
heard.
Tigris and Euphrates are not in Africa. They're in the
In
Middle East.
Middle East.
Middle
Africa.
East.
They just
That's
renamed it.
Mesopotamia.
Middle East.
Yeah.
This is where that go. Now here's the other part. I mean, as people, we're black people. All of us are black. I mean, you check your cards. I've proven it. I know it's true. No matter how many of you are hiding. Now, I know some of the neighborhoods you live in, but we're all black here. But because we've been people who have been oppressed, downtrodden, denied, and disenfranchised, nullified, are anxious to regain identity to the extent that they begin to claim things that may or may not be theirs because we got to get back. And so black people have looked to the Bible, especially after the 60s and the 70s, and said, we went from, man, everybody in the Bible is white to, everybody black. And the fact of the matter is that we haven't really identified well what it means to be black. For example, this idea, we decided to put the Garden of Eden in Africa. Now, this is based on the fact that it says that one of the rivers in the Garden of Eden was a river that wound its way around Cush.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two. Now, what we don't realize, there were two Cushes, and because it gives us the rivers. It says there's, everybody remembers the Tigris, the Euphrates, and then the Pison and the Gihon. Now, we know where the Tigris and the Euphrates is. That's over in what we would commonly call Iraq, in Mesopotamia. Now, if the Cush is typically identified with Ethiopia, that's a heck of a big garden, you know. But the thing is that there was another Cush that was identified in the upper lands of the Mesopotamian Valley, and they have also found the river that they call the Gihon. So it would be up above, to the east of Syria, to the north of Iraq, in the upper Mesopotamian Valley, where the Garden of Eden would be. In fact, a guy named David Roll says he's discovered the site. It's an interesting study. You want to take a look at it. But we want everything now to be black because we've been downtrodden long enough. And this brings us to our little quiz today as we talk about the Bible.
Oh boy, here we go.
We are often we identify everybody as black. I remember the African Heritage Bible, and everybody was black. Adam, of course, which means ruddy or reddish.
Right.
He's black. And to most people, what black means is you ain't white, so you must be black. And
aren't they indicating black and brown people?
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, in doing that, we're just trying to justify and validate that which had been invalidated by white supremacy.
Right.
And
that's it.
That's really
so let's really ask ourselves a question: who really in the Bible was a melanized person who could be termed of African descent? Because that's really what we mean when we say black. Because the Arabs, let me tell you, Arabs, they'll tell you in a minute, I ain't you,
Yeah.
And so will the people from the Indus Valley.
That's
I'm
right.
not you.
That's right.
And so what we're really talking about is who was melanized in the Bible. Let's take a look at them. Let's get started. Let's start off with the Ethiopian eunuch. Everybody knows him. Was he an Africanized, melanized person?
I pray
Or is
so.
he claiming
Ethiopian,
somebody?
I say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How many say yes? Raise the hand. All who say yes.
Here we go.
I'm boldly, I say yes.
I'm not doing anything.
He may
I'm
be
listening.
he may be of
I'm
a different hue, but he was Ethiopian.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, he was an African. They call him, he was a servant of the Candace. The Candace was actually a title for the queen of Ethiopia. He was Cushite. He was African. The word Cush in that the language actually speaks of darker skin, that he was actually African. Very good, ladies and gentlemen. Give each of yourselves a star.
Professor Nick, can we start with Adam?
Yeah, that's an excellent one. Was Adam an African melanized? Was he a melanized person?
He was made from dirt, I would say.
Yeah, that's brown, black.
ruddy.
You never saw none of that white Georgia clay?
Nope.
Oh.
No white sand.
No, I ain't see that.
Brownish, maybe a little ruddy, a little reddish.
Yeah, now we always ask the question in the Bible: were there any black people? The real question asked in the Bible was, were there any white people? Because everybody in the Bible pretty much was a person of color, until you get to the New Testament, where you get a bunch of folks coming over from Italy as a Roman cohort, And even they were darker people. I mean, let me tell you, there was a whole lot more than trade going on across that Mediterranean between Africa and Italy. You know, and some of the Italian soldiers come up and say, "Mamma mia!" You know. But anyway, so everybody, almost everybody in scriptures were people of quote color. But the truth of the matter is, white people are people of color.
Yeah, that's
Uh-oh.
they're not translucent, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're not.
Our show is about to
Wait,
get
is
canceled.
that's not oxymoronic?
You know, but
White
the
people
problem is that
people of color.
They do come in different shades of
of white. So
yes,
beige,
I remember.
dark beige.
Remember,
light
They
Charles,
call
beige.
olive. They call
when we
themselves
were growing
olive.
up, we would hear a white woman say, "I want a man who was tall, dark, and handsome." I used to wonder, what the heck are they talking about?
Hair.
But
tan.
I like the
I mean,
tall,
but-
the darker skin.
I mean, but everybody has some melanin in them. I mean, and when we talk about race, we're talking about the social construct of the context in which we're living.
Right.
You know, but when we in the Bible makes note of skin tone. I mean, you all know the passage of scripture, Jeremiah 13:23. Can an Ethiopian change his skin? It makes note of the Bible takes note of color, but it takes note of color the same way we take note of the color of our car. It is just descriptive. It's not definitive. It's not valuative. It doesn't tell you what the car is worth. You don't say, "Man, them black cars are always faster than the white ones." You know, and so it's what we're looking at are people that we can identify with. We did very well with the Ethiopian eunuch. Let's go now to Moses' wife Zipporah. Black.
I can't wait for this one.
She's black.
Was she African or African melanized?
She was dark. I would say that.
Dark.
There was some significant difference. I want to say.
And you say that because
the way Miriam treated her.
Yeah.
Can I throw a monkey wrench in before you finish that?
Oh, please. I mean, we love the wrenches of monkeys.
Yeah. Which wife are you talking about?
There you go. I tell you, last week's lesson has held on to this young man. People always, people speak of Zipporah being a black woman because Miriam murmured and complained about Moses' Ethiopian wife.
Right.
And so everybody says, see, Moses' wife, her name was Zipporah. We know that. She was Ethiopian. But unfortunately, that flies in the face of what's written in Exodus chapter 4, where it clearly tells us that Zipporah was a Midianite. The Midianites were descended from Keturah, who was the third wife of Abraham that we know of, because we know there was Sarah, and then there was Hagar. You know that Abraham, he was faithful, wasn't he? But and then there was Keturah, who had 6 kids, one being a man named Midian, and he had kids. And so the Midianites were exactly what the Jews were. And so Miriam would not complain about a Midianite because the Midianite was exactly what she was.
Same color. Okay, gotcha.
What we don't realize and what the Bible is trying to tell us, whispering in our left ear, is that Moses had 2 wives. Now, we know from the historian Artapanus, we know from the historian Josephus that Moses had gone on an expedition and he encountered the Ethiopian armies. He was sent on a death mission, really, because, they were squabbling as always. He survived, and the woman who was the princess of Ethiopia by the name of Tharbis, Joseph said she fell in love with him. He was out there waxing people. I mean, Moses was giving them the what for. He was giving them the 2-piece. And she fell in love with him and told her daddy that there's better things to do with that man than fight him. She married him, and Moses became a prince of Ethiopia and Egypt.
Closed the border.
Closed the borders between them. And so he had an Ethiopian. Think about it, folks. He was 40 years old when he left Egypt. Either he was the original 40-year-old virgin or he was married. And to be a prince in Egypt, you had to get married. So he was married, but then he left Egypt, went to Midian and met Zipporah. And he said, bygones are bygones. My wife in Egypt, she's over there. And he and Zipporah were going to live happily ever after. And then God sent him working papers when he was 80, 40 years down the road. So now he's trying to explain to Zipporah. Now, see, what had happened was.
Crazy.
And now, in the meantime, Miriam and Aaron are back in Egypt living in the ghetto with a sister-in-law living in the palace, and she won't even send them welfare cheese. When the rescue comes and everybody's coming over to the promised land, here she come carrying her Samsonite, talking about my family again. Miriam never could stand that sister. And so the Bible says Miriam murmured about Moses's Ethiopian wife. Miriam was kin to the Jews. Now, was she a person of color? Based upon the way we define it, yes, but everybody's really a person of color. She was not an African person. She was a Midianite person. Very
And so
good.
is that a we should have queued up the Philadelphia Orchestra. That sounded so good. But that was because of her ethnicity and not because of her color?
Color was absolutely inconsequential to the Jewish mind and to the minds of people of antiquity. The color was just definitive. It's like if I said, "Hey Charles, can you pass me that blue ink pen?" You would use the color blue to recognize the pen I wanted, but it would have nothing to do with value.
Right.
What in the Bible, what they valued was your family, clan, the God that you worship, and perhaps your national origin, where you were from. And the Jewish nation was a great speckled bird. There were people who were dark, people who were light. Color hardly ever mattered, and so the Bible doesn't get into it a lot, except when it talks about the Ethiopian. There's another passage in Isaiah where it speaks of Ethiopians and their smooth, tall skin, and their smooth skin and their tall, lovely frame. I mean, but it's just descriptive. It's not valuative.
And one thing we got to remember, that is before the invasion of Italy in Ethiopia. So what we see now is a mixture. What we're hearing about in the Bible then is pure Ethiopian. Makes it a whole lot different. I think the problem with us right now is that when we look at nationality, we see the now and we forget about what the then is supposed to be. But Nick, before you go into the rest of them and the rest of our quiz, in the back of my mind, and we don't have to stay on this, I asked myself the question, does this make me a more of a spiritual person knowing this, or does it raise my nationalism? Which one is it that that I'm leaning on the most? And I'm not saying that both can't do that, but I don't want to just think about this in February alone. I want to be able to think about this all the way, be proud all the way through. So I went to the African Museum here in DC, and I've been there about 6 times. But the last time that I've been there, it was overwhelming for me. And you could talk about this later on, because it's because of when I look at slavery, I've learned that slavery came from a curse of living in the tents of the white man. An excuse is what I've learned. And this is outside of going to the museum. I've always heard that. Go ahead, Nick. I mean, if you want to help me.
No. I mean, in answer to the first question about does it help you spiritually, the message of Jesus at the forefront of his ministry is the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he's sent me to preach good tidings to the poor, to set the captives free, to set at liberty. Any human being who's in a broken condition has to be uplifted before they can embrace themselves fully and grow spiritually.
Good word.
If a person has been diminished by disenfranchisement and oppression, discrimination and bigotry, if you can help them to identify beyond their brokenness, it is easier to lead them to a place where they can embrace the gospel. If a person feels so worthless and so, as Martin Luther King coined the expression, so possessed of nobodiness, as he said, then it's hard for them to think that God would expend the capital of grace upon them. But when you can show them, hey, wait a minute, you come from something greater than welfare and poverty and gang banging, then you can pour other things into them. So this can help spiritually, I think, help.
Absolutely.
But it becomes a problem when you decide that you're going to reverse the table, and now you're going to be supreme over those who tried to be supreme over you.
Right.
because being black is no greater value than being not black.
Mhm.
in the eyes
And
of
so,
God, and to know that he's not just the white man Jesus. I mean, you hear that, the why serve this white man Jesus when we were at the table and God is for all of us.
Okay, let me.
Or,
Can I just put this one more thing out?
sure, by all
The
means, man.
Hebrew Israelites, I love being around them. I have to be honest with you. They just come with
And
the
he's all alone in that. But
Yeah. I don't know. This might be the shoes time now. I think but because of how they they come with the message, but I don't like the way they do it. I don't like the militant style of the way they do it. Because I would never want to take the Bible and preach hate now, because I know that there's so many rich heritage pieces of the Bible. I don't want to hate the white people because of it. Not even our colonizers.
Yeah, well, that, and speaking about, and I think a lot of their research is disturbing. I mean,
Very.
But that brings us back, because we talked about people make Jesus white, and
Yeah.
when clearly the Bible shows that Jesus is not white. Am I correct? Pat, you mentioned that.
Yes.
No, you're
It talks about his feet were like bronze and so forth.
It's all about controlling the narrative. It's going back to controlling the narrative.
But
when I was in school, I was taught that cowboys were good guys and Indians were savages.
But when we use that text to establish the blackness of Jesus,
I knew you were going to come after me. I just knew you were going to come after me. I knew it. I saw your face in the beginning when I said it. All right, go ahead.
The blackness of Jesus.
The blackness of Jesus. Yeah, remember it says that he had hair like wool.
Sure.
And
That's
everybody
right.
said, man,
That's
and that
right.
immediately puts Ultra Sheen right on the market. He had hair like wool. I mean, immediately that's when you give him an Afro pick and a dashiki, and his feet were like bronze, and everybody says clearly it's showing that he was. Now, if we want to take that interpretation, we must also say that his mouth had a sword coming out of it, because coming out of his mouth was a sharp double-edged sword. The problem we have here is that we're using apocalyptic imagery language as being definitive and physical.
Okay, symbols. Okay.
But what would be the symbolism of hair like wool, though?
It meant that it was white and glistening.
Would that show wisdom?
It's go back to the Transfiguration, where it says he was transfigured and he became glistening. When it's talking about white as wool, it's trying to use a metaphor to talk about that which is resplendent in appearance. Later on it says he had eyes like lamps of fire. What was it? Did he have a hangover? Was his eyes bloodshot? No, it's trying to, it's making an apocalyptic statement, and so you can't use part of it and then not use the other part of it. This is not descriptive.
Go get him, Chief. Get him,
Nick. You're taking away our go-to text. Can you fix it? What are we gonna do now? Do we have a black Jesus or not? Please.
But also we have to look at ancestry, right? When we look at and
Palestinian, clearly.
Yeah. You look at the descendants; they're not light. I mean, they're dark.
The problem is that we're assigning value to skin color, and in our attempt to resurrect the fallen foundations of our being, we're saying he's got to be, he got to look like Rasul at Fifth and Vine, so that I can feel better about myself. When in reality, he was just a Palestinian guy.
What you're really saying is that we can't be like them.
Yeah, and just make him what we want him to be.
We can't
fit our narrative.
It twists the scripture to try to say something that the scripture doesn't say.
Right.
We know that he was not the white guy that Ellen White said she saw. We know that, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for that, but I'm retired.
Some people don't dream in color, so
you know what? You might be right, but that hairdo didn't even work for me. I mean, and so he was a person. He was a Palestinian, descended from Jewish people who had and people say, well, he had to be black because he went to Egypt and didn't nobody point him out.
Right.
Yeah, he's blended in.
But here's the thing: these are people who have no sense of history whatsoever. Because when you go to Egypt in those days, Egypt had been invaded by the Ptolemies, who were Italians, and you can find images in tombs of Italians who had been mummified. So Egypt was like New York. People from all walks of life were there. And so anybody could walk around Egypt and not be noticed. You could have found somebody selling egg rolls out of a cart in Egypt and they wouldn't have been noticed.
And Nick, is it true that Hebrew men, patriarchs of Hebrew descent, married and had children from women from Africa?
Let's take a look. You know, the Bible speaks of, let's take a look. Let's go to the tape. There was a man, a Hebrew man. Well, he actually was a Hebrew boy when he fell into misfortune among his brothers. His brothers found him to be jealous, and his dreaming made them upset. They sold him to a band of Midianite traders, you know, and he ends up in Egypt. He goes to Egypt, and there his fortunes are reversed when a gentleman by the name of Potiphar takes him on as his ward. Potiphar, who serves the king of Egypt as what's called a saris, which is interpreted throughout the scriptures as a person who is sexless. A saris can be an official, but Potiphar very possibly
eunuch.
Yes, the word saris is typically translated eunuch. The possibility exists that Potiphar was a eunuch.
Can you just say Potiphar the black way for just for us?
Potty chair. Potty chair.
It's Potiphar. No, go ahead. Go
ahead. But which may be the reason why he didn't just up and kill Joseph when Joseph's wife said, he done been flirting with me. You know, the fact of the matter is that, look, you know, Potiphar may have had other things to do. But make a long story short, the Bible says very clearly that Joseph goes to jail, comes out of jail, gets lifted to become the vicegerent of all of Egypt, the prime minister, and he marries a woman named Asenath. And Asenath, it says, is descended from Mitzrayim, who is the progenitor of darker Africans in Egypt. So the children of Joseph were individuals who represented and presented as Africanized people. So when the children of Israel left Egypt, some of them looked like Joseph's wife's family. And you want another one? Here's
lighter
another one.
hues and darker hues.
Lighter hues and darker hues. There is Ishmael, who was the son. Everybody know who Ishmael's father was?
Abraham.
Okay. Well, you're getting, you know, there you go. Ishmael married an Egyptian wife, and the Bible says that he had a son whose name was Kedar. The word Kedar, and all throughout the Bible, like you hear him, dark as the tents of Kedar. The very word itself means dark. Ishmael, you know, and I don't think they had any Natanola back in the day, you know, any bleaching cream. So Ishmael had a son who was darker than the others, and his name became an identity to that. And it had nothing to do with value. Like, and when we grew up, you want to insult somebody, you say, "You stupid. Your mom's a prostitute. Your dad's a drug addict. You black thing. What? I'll kill you." I mean, because black meant valueless. But in those days, black didn't mean that. It just was what you look like.
Right.
So all throughout Israel, there were, you know, threads of darkness woven, threads of not darkness woven, and it was just one great big quilt of people.
So Nick,
and mainly ethnicities.
I found the picture. I should have done it from the green room, but I found a picture of the picture. I found a picture of the photo that Ellen G. White said looked like Jesus.
Oh, you did?
I found it, and it.
Share it.
Maybe it was the glow of his holiness.
Picture, though.
I would love to see this picture on your last week of employment. Share that picture.
It's a black and white picture.
That's okay.
Yeah,
black and white.
More white than black, though. But
the feature you're saying from the feature.
Can you share it?
I don't know. I'm going to see if I can.
Okay.
I'm going to see.
And you know, and then I want to ask the question: why is that a thing? Why is that important? What Ellen
No,
White?
no. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason why I looked at it is because I am a fan. She's not my Jesus, but I am a fan. And
It's important because when
Mhm.
people have been diminished, it's affirmative action. When people have been diminished and given images to tell them what their value is, somebody has to correct that. And when you have children who are playing with little felts every Sabbath,
right. Yeah.
and those little children don't look like them in a world where they're told that because of the way they look, they're diminished. And you walk into any establishment of any value, and all of the pictures on the wall are of white
Right.
men. And you
Right.
drive down the East River Drive, Charles and Philly, and all the statues of white men. People have to correct that so that people can have. The Bible
Well,
exists. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I mean, I'm sure we've seen those studies done by, social scientists where they have a little black girl in a
Doll.
room
Yep.
and they bring the doll in and she has to pick between the black doll and the white doll. And almost every time she chose the white doll because she was indoctrinated.
That's purity. Yeah.
Yeah.
There he is. There he is. There he is.
Wow.
Can you blow that up a little bit?
Yeah,
I'd like to blow it up.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is it. I mean, this is the probably the best that I could get it to.
Oh, that's getting good. Yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't mean he's light, though. I mean,
no, that's right. That's why I was looking at
he
it.
doesn't look white.
Because Nick is saying he's olive.
He don't look white.
Hair is styled pretty nice.
Doesn't look. I want to make sure I get this right. This gentleman doesn't look white to you.
Oh, Marlena's here kind of look like that. She's
You got waves?
No, I got kink in my hair, sir. I'm truly.
Are you blinding us with science?
His beard is trimmed. I mean, I don't know. It's a profile and it's in black and white. I mean,
right.
You can kind of interpret
because
that.
it's in black and white. She could have I'm not trying to be on her side. I'm just,
just curious.
Man, look, you got a job. I understand that.
Thank you, Nick.
I think, I just think that sometimes when people think of Jesus being black, they want to see black features.
Yeah, lips.
Yeah. They want sub-Saharan African features because that identifies with us. Speaking of identifying, how about Solomon?
Well, he was the son of David. So, oh no, you were just talking about
as some of his subjects said, a son of a gun at times. But
and what was his other name?
Lemuel.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm just looking at the show notes. What was it called? I'm so glad there was only one G.
Oh no, you're talking about Simeon now.
Simeon,
Simeon. I'm talking about Solomon the king.
Solomon, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Well, David was ruddy, so that's reddish hue.
But people speak of Solomon being black because in the Song of Solomon, where it says, "I'm black but comely." Yeah, and of course they're dead wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Because Solomon's not saying that. The girlfriend he's chasing is saying that. In the book Song of Solomon, he is chasing a young lady, and she says, "I am dark." You know what? Why shall
I've been in the fields.
Yeah. She says, "I am very dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar."
Here we go again.
Yeah. Do not gaze upon me because I am dark, because the sun has looked upon me. My mother's sons were angry. They made me keeper of the vineyards. This is the woman talking back to Solomon. And it's not Solomon saying I'm dark. It's the woman. And what she's not talking about her race. She's talking about a cultural phenomenon where people who worked in the fields were identified by the fact that they were darker due to the sun impacting the melanin in their skin. That was a part of cultural life in the United States in the 17 and 1800s. When we talked about white women and their fine alabaster skin, it showed that they were not out working when the people working in the fields would be darker. And so she's trying to say, look, they made me work out here. And Solomon was looking at her skin saying, look, I'm liking all that brownness. I'm seeing all up in there. It should be noted
to be darker. I mean, his skin wasn't white. If Daddy is reddish.
The point that I'm making, we can speculate, but the Bible has nothing to say about Solomon's complexion or his or his color presentation. Nothing.
We're
People
help me,
mistake
though.
the woman
We're in
for
the Bible.
Solomon.
Let's flip it real quick. Where in the Bible are people white?
We already concluded that.
Okay.
The question isn't are there people of color in the Bible. The question is, are there any white people? There's everybody in the Bible is a person of color. The closest we get to what we would call a Caucasian or European were the Italians who come along during the time of Christ. I mean, before that, there were Babylonians, there were Assyrians, there were Egyptians. You didn't have anybody who would be remotely construed looking like they're from Sweden.
So I'm gonna act like North Philly now. I'm just gonna ask. So where they come from?
The Caucasus Mountains.
How did they get here?
Who's that? The white people?
Yeah.
They went to the Caucasus
Where did they come from?
Well, the fact of the matter is that he who wins the war writes the history. Right. And you white people won the war, and so they started telling stories in ways that best befitted and underscored their own value.
I found some historic information, and give me your feedback on this. I don't believe the Bible says anything about Middle East or Ottoman Empire in the Bible. Where did those terms come from? The Middle East. When you say the Middle East, it's certain countries and the dividing lines and what have you. Where did they come from?
Yeah, all of these things. I mean, for example, there's no Africa.
That's true.
All of these are man-made terms that are used to allow us to have definition for the sake of handling the subjects. The Middle, the East was, for example, it talked about Jesus being born and the kings came from the
East.
Right. That would be the farther East. But then, or that was actually the Near East. The Far East would be where China was. The Middle East would be that part that lay between Egypt and the Near East. And so they called it the Near East. The same way they call the Caribbean islands the West Indies. It has nothing to do with India. But, a couple of white guys got lost in the ocean, screwed up, and decided to rename the map to cover their screw up.
Right. And maps had to be redrawn because some of the earlier I remember the maps in public school, elementary school, or whatever. When we saw maps, United States was ginormous.
It was huge,
and Africa was like this little pod on the side. And we always believed that Africa was always a small continent. Please, you can put the United States in
the world can
Africa
fit
3 times.
Yeah.
And you asked where it came from, the images people draw things to suit themselves, to tell their own story. And, books became popular with Gutenberg and his movable press. Gutenberg was German. It stands to reason that a whole lot of books are going to have a whole lot of German looking people in them. But the problem is when people lie to cover things. And in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 19, one of the greatest events in all of world history occurs. A king by the name of Sennacherib comes out of Assyria with bloodthirsty rage on his mind to sweep across the Near and Mideast all the way to Egypt. He's going to conquer all. The Assyrians were the bad boys of the Bible. They would do things to you that were unspeakable, and they planned to wipe out Israel. In the book of 2 Kings chapter 19, they are on their way to Israel. They're going to do great harm to Israel. Their plan is to get rid of Israel altogether. But in 19 and verse 9, the text says, Sennacherib received a report that Tirhaka, the king of Cush, was marching out to fight against him. That deterred Sennacherib from attacking Jerusalem. Now, he did attack Israel, wiped it out, but he never could get to Jerusalem because a king by the name of Tirhaka came out against him. And it says Cush. The word Cush here is Ethiopia. We now know who this is. The 25th dynasty pharaoh of all of Egypt was the 25th dynasty and pharaonic history. They are known as the Black Kings of Egypt. There were several of them. And these were, we're talking about some bad boys. And not only were they bad boys, we have images of them. And they're not we're not talking about people of color. We're talking about Wesley Snipes and his brothers now. These brothers were dark-skinned people, and they kicked posterior and they took names. There's a whole book written on this, how Taharka saved Jerusalem. If he had not done this, there would have been no Jerusalem. And if there was no Jerusalem, there would have been no Jesus. If there was no Jesus, there would have been no New Testament.
Wow.
A black man in the 25th dynasty saved Jerusalem. But the historians wrote it out. They found his images, Charles, and Pat. They found the statues of Taharka, and he was so dark. Along with all of his brothers. I mean, and look, this is huge history. Everybody knows it now. They said, well, the people who made these images were using darkness as some kind of artistic statement. But his nose is broad, his lips. Let me tell you, I'll be honest with you. Any one of us, I would have been too light to have been in Taharka's family.
Wow.
And I'm definitely brown. And he was dark, but they wrote it out of the Bible.
Let me give you a testimony of when I was at my weakest point in believing in the Bible. I started.
Talk about yesterday, man. Talk about it.
No, it was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
I stopped believing in the Bible, and I started to read about Sennacherib in a world history book. Took the world history book, which was secular, and put it up against Kings, First Kings, Second Kings. I put it up against Kings, and saw that they were happening simultaneous.
Yes.
That what the secular Bible was saying about exactly what you're talking about, his conquest, going from place to place. The Bible said the same thing side by side with each other, which made me say, nah, God put it in the Bible. God sewed the Bible together so that we could understand more of history even outside of the Bible. I wanted to put that point out because I did have a weakness in the Bible. Someone comes across from you and tells you, oh, this is the white Bible. We hear that now. We even hear that from our own movies. The white Bible, the King James. Don't even pay attention to that. There's something else out there. And I guess that's what ties it again, Nick, in the beginning when I asked about nationalism and spirituality. I could see that now, because now that I can go back and check out what I read, I believe that the Holy Spirit gives us the opportunity to look at nationalism as a way of saying, hey, my word is for real. My word is real.
I mean, all I'm saying is tell the truth. You don't have to embellish it. You don't have to, you don't have to make everybody black. Here's another one. One of the most famous black people in the Bible is Simon of Cyrene.
Black Simon.
Hold on. First of all, before we go there, Oakwood has the statue on their campus. So please don't mess it up for us, please. Okay.
Nick, turn the other way if you're gonna say something.
No. I think he's on the right path.
I must tell the truth. It is unfortunate that in our need to find models and icons in the Bible, that we grab them, and we see the word Cyrene, and we all know that Cyrene is a city in northern Libya, which would make it African. Now, of course, we also all know now that Cyrene, Alexandria, cities on northern Africa were Mediterranean states that had been infused by Greek and Italian influence for hundreds of years. But what we know more than that, let me ask the question. Everybody who sees, this heroic black man jumps out from the crowd. Jesus is being crucified. They're beating him. The women are crying. And Jesus says, if they do it to me in a green tree, what will they do in a dry? The soldiers are calling him names and reviling him. And this brother jumps out from the crowd and says, no, sir, ain't going to be happening like that. Throwing up gang signs, right? Let me just ask a question. Where did this brother come from in the middle of a bunch of Jews during a Jewish holiday that excluded people who were not Jewish?
Compton, baby. Come on.
He came from an MGM soundstage.
North Philly, baby.
People don't ask that question, and it is a question that they really need to ask, and that is, who is this Simon and why does he show up? Well, this is what we know. If you look at the book of Acts, the second chapter, when they have their Pentecostal celebration, and Pentecost was one of the, there were 3 holidays that Jews came from all around the world for. Pentecost was typically one of the biggest, and it competed with Passover. Notice what this says in Acts chapter 2. Now, they were staying in Jerusalem, God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. This is Acts 2, verse 5. And then when they started speaking in tongues, the people say, how is it that each of us hears them in our native language? From Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, and the parts of Libya near Cyrene. We did some studying. And we found out that in Cyrene there was a huge Jewish cohort, because Jews had been scattered all over the world. There were Jews all through Alexandria. There were Jews all through Egypt, which is why when Jesus and Joseph and Mary went there, there was no problem. One, like they got there and somebody said, "Oh, you're the only Jews here. You're gonna have a problem." I mean, there were Jews everywhere around the world. Paul came from Tarsus. So, I mean, Jews were everywhere, but there was a huge community of Jews in Cyrene, but there was one exception. The Jews in Cyrene were some of the most rebellious in the world. They took no tea for the fever. There are several different reports of Jewish rebellions in Cyrene that made the Romans realize that they had to do something to keep those guys in line. It stands to reason then that this Simon of Cyrene, coming at a time when he's watching these Romans, whom the Cyrenian Jews hated, beating, abusing a bunch of Jews, probably was a little bit more vocal than the rest of them. He shows up, and the other Jews who have learned how to tolerate the oversight of the Roman overlords, they're upset, they're angry. Some of them are in cahoots with them now because they don't like Jesus. Simon doesn't really get all of this. All he knows is that one of his brothers being abused by 5-0. And he's saying some stuff. And the cops said to him, "Oh, you want some of this?" This is how Simon the Cyrenian finds himself co-opted into the suffering of Christ, fighting for his people as a Jew from Cyrene.
So was he not darker hued though?
I know that's the issue you'd like to take up.
I mean, because
we don't know, but one thing is for sure: he was Jewish, and he probably was like all of the other Jews around him. Jewish people were famous for not mingling with other individuals. So, but the issue isn't whether or not his complexion identified. The issue is we're trying to make him a sub-Saharan African,
right?
When in reality he was a Jewish guy. I mean, either he had heard that there was a cut rate Jewish store that was selling Afro Sheen cheaper on that day, and he went out of his way to go to the store, or he was a Jewish guy who got co-opted into it.
We're gonna have to remove the statue, GP, from Oakland.
Nick, with your presentation just so scholarly, I'm sitting here like a sponge. This is one of those classes where you don't want the bell to ring.
Right.
This is just so much fun to
but my goodness, speak. I thought I prepared for the show, but I learned so much from you today. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, man, first of all, you guys are kind, but secondly, I mean, we don't have to say things like the mark of Cain was being black. We don't have to say things like because Noah cursed, Ham, that everybody under that line, the Cushite line, is cursed. We don't have to make things up. We can let the Bible speak, and the Bible will tell the truth, and we can all claim some sense of identity from it. But more than anything, we need to realize that there's no value invested in the way the wavelengths hit our eyes after reflecting off of somebody's skin that allows us to determine what their color is. Thus endeth the lesson.
Amazing.
I think this was so good for people to know that white people were not in the Bible, because they're always thinking, because of, what the historians have X'd out, that Jesus is for the white people, and I just think that's good stuff to teach them.
Well,
Yeah.
there's some of them
And
in the
send all
Bible.
questions to Nick Teleferro.
Yeah,
And I'll send them over to Pat.
no,
We'll give them to the bronze-footed Jesus. But I mean, but for example, like when he gets to the end of his life, the Bible says that several Greeks came saying we would see Jesus.
Hmm.
I mean,
Mhm.
but the problem is
Strong
we are
one.
superimposing on the Bible the issues of our
Right.
day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's
let the Bible speak. Let it speak.
That's
It'll
right.
tell you the truth.
That's right.
And we know
Amazing.
how badly a lie can, mess
Oh,
people's
yeah.
minds up and confuse them. And the truth is right in front of you, but you won't believe it because, people just keep
Yeah.
reaffirming the lie. And so I think this is great news, great information.
They always say the truth will set you free. I think we take that statement for granted, but in so many
But first it'll make you miserable.
Yeah, because it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
doesn't fit with
Facts.
Like people right now who've been watching Cyrene style his afro are having an issue with me,
Nick, all I can
Right.
say to coming down to this thing is thank you. It really
Yes.
But
Oh
this
my
is
goodness.
Excellent
So,
job.
I mean,
Excellent job, sir.
thanks,
Very
guys.
good.
Thanks
I
for
just
the
wanted to
opportunity.
learn.
I will
Yeah.
never forget. I closed with my elder, Devin Simpson, whom I love with all my heart, from West Philadelphia Church. We gave them Acts chapter 13, verse 1, where it talks about Simeon called Niger, who was
Mhm.
obviously a darker person. He was an apostle who was darker. But my elder, Devin Simpson, who's just a box of candy, one of the sweetest guys, he misread it and thought that there were two G's in the text.
Go ahead,
Charles.
boy.
And Simeon, who is called right there in the middle of church.
Oh no. Oh no. Was there a gasp?
Oh, there was, and then what I
I need to
loved
ask you
about
a
my
funnier
church is that we
question.
all laughed.
I gotta
we
ask
all
you a
laughed.
funnier question, and I could ask you this: was it with Caribbean fervor when he said it?
Oh my goodness! And Devin has a deeply resonant
He
voice.
does.
He was the first person at church to speak patois. I thought I was because I was new pastor, and I'm thinking I got the accent now. I know what everybody's saying.
Yeah.
And he broke out in full patois one time, and I was lost. And he said, "Pastor, you don't know what I said there, do you?" I mean, he is one of the sweetest individuals.
He is.
And
Yeah,
you would
I
not
Devin.
know,
Right.
what his life was before it. I mean, he is a trophy of grace.
Real
But he got up
gentleman.
there and he said, Simeon, who is called, and the word rhymed with bigger.
Yeah.
So,
Oh wow. Yes, this has been rich. I think, wow. All I can say is wow. And the thing I'm getting from this is to dig deeper. Sometimes you say we take one word, we run with it. All right, it said black, it said this, we have to dig deeper into the text and look at the context and look at, to see, to even hear about Solomon and the lady, that he was referencing. We just assume it's talking about Solomon. It's like those things that we just run with.
We take for granted. Right?
Yeah.
you want to know the other surprising part of that text?
No.
Oh no.
No.
Tell us, Nick. Go ahead.
Solomon was chasing this woman around in his garden. They weren't married. There was a whole lot of stuff going on in that garden. They were not married yet.
Yeah, a lot of
No
stuff
Bible
going on,
studies.
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And this is the word God does not appear. This isn't, the Song of Solomon is just a rush into romance.
Yes, it really is.
It's Quincy Jones, The Secret
Help
Garden.
me, somebody.
It's
It's a secret. I will take care of you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. See, you can sing it because you're retired. Let's go.
No, but this
Been a
is
pleasure, guys.
Yeah, I can't wait to read the comments. I can't wait to see what our viewing and listening audience.
What's that email address?
Yeah, if you
Don't
want
put it out. Don't put it out.
No, we like it. We like it when people challenge even some of the things. We're not saying that everything.
And we will be challenged.
It's
Oh,
Nick
no.
Teleferro at gmail.com.
Just
we
Nick, show
forward it
your
to you.
references. Just show your references, dude.
Yeah.
Upset at acsda.com. Let us know. Bring it on.
This
we're-
podcast sponsored by the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, God.
Oh yes.
I know I'll catch some heat on this one, but that's okay.
This is good Black history, though. I mean, this
It
is
is.
good
Yeah, and it
stuff.
makes me want to
Well,
go back and read it for myself.
absolutely.
Listening to what you said, and not,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
believe
because all those out there that said, what you talking about, Willis, they're the ones they're going to go dig and say, What did he say?
It's like,
And that's the beauty of replay.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
They're gonna say
You
he was
can-
right, Willis.
Yeah, right. Right.
Look it up. Yeah, look it up for yourself. All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Well,
Learned a lot.
I know this has been
Pleasure.
great. This is a
Indeed.
great
Great job,
kickoff.
Nick. Thank you. Great job, sir.
Great
My
kickoff.
pleasure, guys.
Our Black History Month series, and we have even more exciting things coming up. We're going to be talking about Black Adventist history. You know how that all got started. We're going to talk about Blacks and the wealth gap and how money has impacted the Black community. And we're even going to be talking about guess who's coming to dinner and interracial relationships and where we are now in this time period. So
It's
That's good stuff, Tom.
inter-ethnic relationship.
Since race is a man-made construct.
Yes.
I see who's running. I see who's leading in this one.
Yeah.
Ah,
All right. So
Charles, big man on campus now. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, accidents happen,
well, no. Once again, guys, it's been real. We've enjoyed kicking it with you, and we'll see you next week for another lively discussion. Take care,
Bye,
everybody.
family.
See you then. Take care.
Take care,
Bye.
everybody.